And welcome to this week's DugSoup webinar. I hope you are all well. And today we're going to talk about how to keep track of all your LinkedIn conversations with DugSoup Turbo. And today's webinar will be presented, as always, by Giles Garnett, the Head of Professional Services. And the live chat will be done by Jin, the Head of Customer Support. Giles will also be answering all your questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you, and let's start our webinar.
Thank you, Jin. Hi, it's Giles here, Head of Professional Services at DugSoup. Thank you all for joining us at this challenging time. I hope you are all well, keeping safe. So today's topic is how to keep track of LinkedIn conversations, and this is focusing upon the Turbo functionality of DugSoup. And what I'll do is I'll walk you through how to extract various data from LinkedIn and transfer that through using Zapier into a Google Sheet to enable you to track conversations and see who's responded, when, and so forth. As Jin says, she'll be keeping an eye on the chat box, so fire away with your questions, and hopefully Jin will be able to keep up with them, and anything that she doesn't address during the webinar, I will do my best to answer at the end. Got a couple of slides, but most of today's webinar will be a live demo, so hopefully everything will go smoothly. We'll crack on. So what I'm going to do today is these are the steps we're going to go through. First of all, I'm going to create a Google Sheet with various column headings in. If you look, hopefully Jim will put the link to this in the chat box, but there is already a blog posting relating to what we're walking through today. So if you want to follow that at the same time as listening to the webinar, you can do that as well. So what we'll do is we'll go through 4 steps. We'll go through creating a Google Sheet with various column headings, and then we'll build a first Zap to capture some visit data, some essential data to have your baseline data from. Then using an action activity within from Zapier through the webhook process, we'll capture you sending a message to a first degree connection, including a timestamp. And then finally, we'll set up a Zap to show you how the message bridge will capture any response that comes into your message, and will update the appropriate row in your Google Sheet. So if I come out of here now, hopefully this week, I've tried to make my screen a little larger, so hopefully you can see it better this week. I know that in previous weeks the text has been a little bit small, so hopefully today it's a little clearer for everybody. So first of all, I've to help speed things up a little bit, so I've already created here a Google Sheet, and the key data that I'm looking to capture today in the processes that I'm going to walk through are the ones, as you can see here in these column headings. We have the profile ID, which is unique to each and every LinkedIn user. URL, just a link to the URL of the individual concerned. First name, last name, email address. Because they're first degree connections, we should be able to see their email address. Then I would like to capture the message that I've sent to them with a timestamp. I think the timestamp is important, because then you can, depending on the activities or campaigns that you're carrying out, you can then correlate that and be able to compare that in the future. And then also any received message in reply, and similarly putting a timestamp against that. So in the process of the testing they're going to do now and the building of the Zaps, we should be able to populate one entire row here, and show how that can be then automatically populated going forward, depending on the campaign that you're carrying out. So, first of all, we have set up our spreadsheet. So now what we need to do is set up DugSoup in the correct way, and then start to build our Zap. So first of all, I will go over to my DugSoup options. I'll open an options tab. And hopefully most of you will be familiar with this, but because we're now building Zaps and we're carrying out manual actions as we're building the Zap to get sample data, we need to make sure we turn on the run automated actions while manually browsing profiles. That then enables us to capture sample data to be able to populate and match the data correctly within a Zap. So I'm going to turn that one on there now. And we'll now go along the top here to our Connect tab. And what we want to do here is we're going now to build our first Zap. And our first Zap will be a visit Zap. Now, the documentation regarding the data that we collect within each of these events from a webhook are documented on the support site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that one on there, and now we will go to Zapier. And I've created some test ones already, just in case things don't work as we go live. So we have those as a fallback in case. But what we'll do now is we will now make a Zap. We'll do this from the beginning and walk through this step by step. So first of all, we want to capture the visit information. So I'm going to, first of all, name my Zap, because otherwise you lose track. So we're going to capture visit data. And as with all of these activities when we're working with DuckSoup, we need to capture webhooks by Zap. We need to capture a webhook. We need to use a webhook to capture the data, sorry. So we go to webhooks by Zapier, and then we go down to a catch hook, and that will give us a unique URL where the data will be sent or will be captured to. So we'll copy this URL here, and we will copy and paste that into this particular box here. And when I click that, we can now see that DuckSoup is updated, and this will capture a visit event. Now, if we go back to Zapier, we'll scroll down a little bit, and we'll now press continue. And what will happen now is that Zapier will start to listen for some data on that webhook address. So now what I need to do is carry out a visit to somebody in my network. And the reason I want to do it with somebody within my network is because I want to send it to a first-degree connection, and I want to be able to capture their email address as well. You can do this with all sorts of different workflows, of course. And in this case, I'm going to go to My Connections within LinkedIn. And because I know she's online, I'm going to have a look at my colleague's profile. So I'm now going to open a profile, and what we'll see then is wait for it to work. There we go. So now what we'll see is DuckSoup open the profile. I've manually opened the profile, and DuckSoup will now carry out what it normally does when you open the profile. So we see the tags appear on the right, and then we'll see it'll capture the contact information as well during the normal browsing activities.
I'm sorry, Giles. 1 second. Your screen is very, very blurry, and I can't even make out what page you are on. Would it be possible to just have a look? What's happening?
Let's have a look. What I'll do is I'll stop sharing and try sharing again.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll try and set up the sharing again, and hopefully it will improve.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that any better?
A little bit better, but still quite blurry. Would you be able to try to zoom in to see if this helps?
If I zoom in, is that any better?
It's better, but it's still very blurry. That's very strange because we haven't had this before.
Okay. Let's just check.
Maybe if you could zoom in a little bit more, that would help. This is perfect. still quite blurry, but we can still, I can still read and see
If
that you're on LinkedIn.
if that's any better, that's
Yes, that's better. It's
okay.
blurry, but oh, that's perfect.
Apologies, everybody, for the technical difficulties. It is live, so these things can happen. Okay, so hopefully you've captured what I've been going through so far. Thank you, Jin, for that, because I'm not looking at the chat box, so I'm not seeing the messages from people. So I've now visited a profile, and hopefully the Zapier has captured some test information for me able to work from. So we can see here we have two webhooks that have been captured. The hook B will be the a visit type of action, and this is the create event. Now that's not the interesting one for us, because this one does not contain an email address. The interesting one for us is always the update event, because in the update event, if you scroll down, we can see that the data email is there collected. So I'm done editing with that. I've chosen my sample data here from hook A. Try see if I can go a bit bigger with that in case anybody's struggling to see it. There we go. So we can see here, this is all the data that's captured by the webhook. I'm choosing this one, which is the update event, and that's the data that I'm going to work with in order to populate my spreadsheet with some sample data. What I tend to do now after I've done that is I pretty much always will apply some sort of filter to my data when I'm doing this. This is reacting a little bit slowly. There we go. So there are a number of different options you have here with filtering, depending on the data and the people that you're trying to, the data that you're trying to collect. So what I want to do here is, from my catch hook here, I have all of this data here. And what I want to do here is, I'm not interested in capturing data from people who I'm not a first degree connection with. I only want to capture data from people who I'm already connected with. So what I can do here, for instance, is I could take the email field here and only continue if that contains an @ sign. That's one option. However, that doesn't always work, because some people have their email address hidden, and sometimes people have their email address open to everybody. So what I'm going to do here is actually I'm going to look for the degree of connection. So here, my data degree, so that's how my relationship with this individual on LinkedIn is, and this is a first degree connection. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that contains a 1. And the reason I'm going to say it contains a 1, when we do this in standard LinkedIn, we get a first. When we do it in Sales Navigator, it just comes up with a numerical value 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to say if data degree contains a 1, I want it to continue, because I'm only interested in looking at first degree connections. Press continue there. And hopefully, there we go. So your Zap would have continued, because my data degree contains a 1, because Jin is a first degree connection with me. So now we will continue. We're done editing with that. And now what we want to do is we would like to populate some data in our Google Sheet. So I will now go to Google Sheets. And what I want to do here is I would like to do a lookup. The reason I want to do a lookup is because I don't want to get lots of duplicate information in my spreadsheet. I want to keep it clean, and I want to hopefully only have 1 entry per person in my spreadsheet against this particular campaign. So I will carry out a lookup first. And now I need to just log on to my Google account so that it looks for my Google Sheet. Hopefully most of you are familiar with this, where you have to find your appropriate spreadsheet that you've created. But it's all fairly intuitive on the Zapier website. We'll look at the worksheet. So I've got my how to keep track of LinkedIn conversations. That's my Google Sheet here. It's worksheet number 1. And now I need to prescribe which column to look up with. And that will for me, in this case, because it's unique, it's going to be the profile ID. That's a unique number that everyone has in LinkedIn. And I want this information to come from the catch hook. And if I click on the search and I type in ID, we can see here data ID, and that's unique to this particular person. So I'd look up against that value there. I don't need any supporting data. But what I then want to do is I would like Google Sheets to create a spreadsheet row if it doesn't exist. So we'll tick that button there, tick that box there. And now I need to tell Zapier what data to populate my row with. So again, from our catch hook, click on there. And now I need to put in the profile ID. We can do that by just typing an ID there. And that's the one I want there. Now I'd like to capture the LinkedIn URL of this particular person. And we'll scroll down, and as you can see here, there we are, data profile. Now, if you chose to, you could capture other information here as well, and you could add other columns to your spreadsheet. But for speed and ease of use for this demonstration, I'm just capturing ID, URL, and first name, last name, and email address. So you can also combine data. You can put multiple fields of data into one particular box here. So you could, for example, say full name and put first name and last name into one box. It depends on how you're working and how your processes are set up for you. We'll scroll down a little bit further, and then we'll add, because we've taken the update event, we know we're going to capture here an email address as well. Now these further fields here will be populating from our subsequent zaps, so we don't need to add anything there. I will now press continue, and we'll now, this is the sample data we have here. We'll now press test and review. So it's now searching for or creating a spreadsheet row. And here we go, a test spreadsheet row was sent to Google Sheets just now. So if we now go back to our Google spreadsheet, we can see here the information has been populated as we wanted it to. It's got the ID, it's got the URL, it's got the first name, the last name, and an email address. So that's great. We've got our base data there for our first degree connection. And what we can do now, we're done editing with that. And the next thing we can do then, we're happy with our Zap, we can now turn that on. I think I need to delete the final step. There we are, the Zap is now ready, and we can turn that one on. So now any profile that I visit that is a first degree connection, because I put that in my filter here, will appear on this spreadsheet populated with this information. So that's the first step carried out. What we need to do now is I would like to create a second Zap, and the second Zap will be to capture sending a message. So we're going to use a different type of event here. We're going to create a second, we're going to capture a second webhook here, and it's going to be of an action type activity here. So what we need to do now is, what I would like to do is I would like to visit a profile. Let's go back here to my network. And this time when I visit a profile, I'm going to set it up so that it sends a message automatically when I visit a first degree connection. So in order to do that, I need to go to my DuckSoup Turbo options tab and go back to actions. And the second one down here, send a personalized message to first degree connections using LinkedIn or standard, LinkedIn or Sales Navigator. I've put in a test message here using the marker to pick up the first name. And I'm going to carry out a visit again to my colleague's LinkedIn profile. We'll see the message go, and then we'll be able to see that information appear in our spreadsheet. We've still got this one turned on here so that we can capture this as we're doing this manually, and then therefore make sure that the Zap is configured correctly. So what we need to do now is copy our webhook information into there. So we'll start by, once again, we'll be making a zap. We'll name it, and this will be sent message. Once again, we're using the webhook. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for you all, and hopefully you can all see my screen now. It's slightly awkward if I'm just talking to myself and nobody can see anything.
Giles, would you be able to zoom in while you're on DuckSoup page?
Yeah, okay, we'll do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's make that one a little bigger. There we go. So just to recap, on the Actions tab here, under First Degree Connection message, I'm sending a personalized message here, which I've put in here. That will be sent when I carry out a visit to a First Degree Connection, and we'll be able to see that accordingly. Hopefully you can now see that properly. So what I'm going to do now is copy my webhook into here. We've gone to Webhooks by Zapier, and we're going to once again click on Catch Hook. This will generate our unique URL. We'll copy that one, and we will paste that into there. The options are saved. So now, once again, Zapier will now be listening, and we've configured it here. We've turned on the webhook. We've got our webhook there prescribed. We're going to press continue, and now it'll be listening for a message to be sent. So if I now go back to LinkedIn, and I'm going to visit my colleague's LinkedIn profile again, and this time we'll actually see the message go, hopefully. I press on that one. I'm getting lots of views on your profile today, Jin. So what we'll see now, we'll see that DuckSoup's got the profile. It's opened up the tags. There we are. There's the contact information it's gathering. We'll just wait for this to happen. In a second, we'll see the messaging box open. So there we are. See, it's sending a message. So there we go. As the text, it's using the marker. It's picked up Jin's first name. It's doing all of this automatically. And there we are, succeeded in sending a message. There we go. So now what we should be able to do is, if we go back to our the Zap that we're building, we should now be able to test and review. And we can see here we have success. We have some data that's been captured. So what we can see now is that we have, this is the sample data that's come through from the message that we've just sent. So we're done editing with that. That's the sample data. And now, once again, you may want to put in a filter here. Now there's various options here depending on what activity you're doing. But in this case here, what I'm going to do here is I would like to capture, in this case, I'm going to look for data name if it contains its message profile. And that's because I want to capture that particular activity. There we go. We put in that filter. We'll press continue, and the Zap will have continued. So we're happy with that. The next thing we want to do is we now would like to update our spreadsheet row. So we'll now go to Google Sheets here. So we're now going to link the information into our Google Sheet. And what I want to do here is update a spreadsheet row. Once again, we have to make sure we're using the correct credentials. And this is the slightly tedious bit to watch. Apologies for this. We'll go to my Google Drive. Once again, go to the correct spreadsheet. And I only have one worksheet. Of course, if you're operating maybe a number of different campaigns, you may have different worksheets, etc., etc. But for expedience, we're just showing you this. So now I would like to carry out a search. I want to search by that unique ID to make sure that we're correctly updating the correct row. So we're going to look up the spreadsheet row. Once again, we'll make sure that we're looking up in the right place. Bear with me. We go to sheet 1 again. And this is right, the lookup column. The lookup column will always be the profile ID because that is the unique value. And the lookup value, we then compare that to the catch hook that we've used here against our webhook. And here, profile ID. Perfect. And we don't need to create a new spreadsheet row. We're just going to say that's great. And then we're going to update the row. And so now we've got the search carried out, and then the fields that we wish to populate here. We've already hopefully had all of these fields already populated from the previous Zap. So now we want to capture our sent message and our timestamp as to when it was sent. So if I go to the catch hook, and well, there we go, there's my message. And then we look for the timestamp, again from the catch hook, and there we are, and that's in Zulu time. There are various different built-in actions you can carry out. You can get to have timestamps reformatted within Zapier. It's all explained within Zapier. You can change the format of the times and make it completely customize that to your own appeal and your own time zone, etc. So that's worth looking into if that's of interest as well. What we'll now do is we'll press continue. And because I didn't carry out the test here, search for the spreadsheet row. Excellent, that's done. And now we can do this, and we can now do test and review. And here we go. A test spreadsheet row was sent to Google Sheets just now. And there we go. We go to our Google Sheet, and I have sent a message to my first degree connection, Jin. There's the text of the message I've sent, and there's the timestamp. Yeah, 22 minutes past 5 local time for me. So the information that I required is all in there. Now, we've captured our visit data, we've captured our sent message data. Now what we want to do is process any received message. So hopefully Jin will have messaged me back, and I think she has. But what I want to do is I'm going to go back to my message box there, and then I can explain a couple of little things that we need to make sure happen here in order to make sure that this works properly from a testing point of view. So we're now done with this Zap. We can turn this one on as well. There we go. And now what we need to do is build our third and final Zap to process any received messages. Those of you who are familiar with this, you maybe understand with the message bridge, we've got a little bit of a few actions to go through to make sure we capture the new message. And I'll speak further about that at the end of the webinar, because we've got some interesting developments coming there in a new release. But for the time being, I'll explain how this is working at the moment. So what we now need to do is create our third and final Zap. So I'm going to now be capturing a message event through Zapier. Right, now we need to go to Zapier, and we're going to make our final Zap. Once again, you probably know this bit already. Webhooks by Zapier, and once again, it's a catch hook. And we'll copy our URL once more and paste that into here. The DuckSoup has updated that, and options are saved. And now what we need to do is we need to once again capture some sample data. Now, because this is a message type event, the way that we capture data here is through the message bridge. And in order for this to work properly, we need to make sure we have some unread messages. The message bridge at the moment will only capture data from unread messages. So I'm going to go to my mailbox and I'm going to press on my little envelope there to make sure that message is unread, so that the message bridge can actually process it. And then I'm going to come away from my message box so that I don't accidentally read it again. I think that may have been a second. Okay. All right. So that's an unread message at the moment. And we'll go like that. Right. Now what we need to do is force the message bridge into checking for new messages. And we can do that by turning the message bridge on and off. You may have seen this happen before. We've done this a couple of times in previous webinars. But the message bridge will now, if I turn that on, it will now open, hopefully. It's going to go to Sales Navigator first, of course, because that's the law of doing something live. There are three things that the message bridge looks for. It looks for messages within your standard mailbox. It looks for messages in your Sales Navigator mailbox, and it also looks for new connections. So I think what it's going to do now is look for new connections. Yeah, that's going to new connections. So we'll turn that off again. And then we can force it to look at my mailbox by turning it on again. And now it's looking for unread messages in my mailbox. Except it appears to be looking at, oh, there we go. Hopefully that has picked up the unread messages. No, that was too quick. Apologies. That did Sales Navigator. That's looking for new connections. It's always a little bit hit and miss this when you're doing it live. That's new connections. And that should now be checking my message box. And it's saying I have no new messages. Which is not what I expected. So let's go back here. Let's mark a couple of messages as unread. There we go. And try again. Just double check to make sure no data has appeared in here. Doesn't appear to have. So let's try that again. Turn that off because that's Open Sales Navigator. Now it's looking for new connections. You can see when I turn the message bridge on and off, it opens another tab every time. Turn it off and it should close that tab. And then when I open it this time, hopefully it will look at new messages. It's picked up 2 new messages. But for some reason, it's not picking up the third one. It's at least looking for unread messages this time, so maybe we'll have some luck. Apologies for this. Now, in a week's time, while this is doing this, I can inform you now that it's currently available on the free range version of DuckSoup. We're very pleased to announce that version 7.3.1 is coming, and say it's available on free range already. Oh, there we go. It's just read the unread messages. Excellent. So we'll have some sample data in a second. But yeah, with 7.3.1, we will be able to carry out this sort of activity a lot quicker. And actually, there will be a change in the requirement to mark messages as unread. The robot will be using timestamps to look for messages and can work in a much more effective way. So next Tuesday, at the same time, we're putting in an extra webinar to explain all the full and complete changes that are coming in 7.3.1. So the process of building some of these apps will be a little more intuitive, a little bit more straightforward. So that's something to put in your diaries for next Tuesday. Now, let's have a look and see if we've got some data here. So hopefully we have now. Hopefully I've got the message from Jin in here. There we go. So we've got here, it's picked up the unread message from Jin, which is great. It's picked up my other couple of messages as well. But this is the important one because this is relating to the person that we had in my spreadsheet already. So we're done editing there. Now, once again here, I would put a filter in here normally. And the reason for that is because there are different types of messages that you can receive. And what I've been always looking for here is this data type, this member to member. Again, if you look in the support documentation under data type, there are different type of messages that you get. Connection accept, for example, is one of them. And we don't want to pollute any of our data here. So what we want to do here is I would like to say, I'm only going to carry this further on this particular process flow. If the data type contained, I should probably say exactly matches member to member, because then I know it's a member to member message. Excellent. That's worked well. We're done editing with that. So we've got our filter in place, and now what do I want to do? Well, once again, finally, we want to update our spreadsheet row. So if I now go here, I'm going to do the same action as we did with the last SAP. We're going to update our spreadsheet row. Again, we put in our credentials and we locate our spreadsheet, as we have done a number of times over the last half an hour. There we go. And once again, we're going to have to add a search step to make sure we're updating the correct row. So we'll add a search step, and that'll be once again against the profile ID. My Google Drive. The spreadsheet will be how to keep track of LinkedIn conversations. Worksheet will be sheet 1. And our lookup column will, as previous, will be our profile ID. And because we get the profile ID in all of the payloads from these catch hooks, just type in ID. There we go, data from ID. And that will be the ID relating to the person who sent the message to you. We're done with that. We don't want to create a new row. Press continue. Test and review. Searching for a spreadsheet row. Yes, it's found a spreadsheet row. Excellent. So now, because it's found it, we're now happy to update that row. Our row already contains all of this data, the ID, the URL, first name, last name, email address, and the message that we sent with the timestamp. So what I'd like to do now is capture, hopefully. It's all here. It's a message received event. That's another item you could use within your filters, is that it's a received event. Yeah, there are various different options there depending on the type of information and how granular you are working, to what degree of granularity you're working. And we'll go down here and we want to capture this data text. So, nice to meet you. And we're going to capture the timestamp as well. So there we go. There's our timestamp as to when the reply came. We'll press continue. There we go. There's all our data. We'll press test and review. And hopefully a test spreadsheet row was sent to Google Sheets just now. We'll go to our spreadsheet. And there we go. The data has now appeared in our spreadsheet. and it's got the timestamp on there as well, the local time. Here it's 25 to 6. But that way you can, when you're sending out a number of campaign messages or something, some sort of a campaign to people, you can capture exactly who it's gone to, the time that it was sent to them, and then also the received message as well. So the final step then would be to say, okay, we're happy with all of that. We'll turn the Zap on. We'll go back here to the various Zaps. So I've now got my three Zaps set up. We've got the capturing the visit, capturing the sent message when it's sent. And I didn't name my Zap. That's very bad practice. So this is message received. There we go. For completeness, otherwise it gets confusing. There we go. So we've now got our 3 Zaps all turned on, all labeled appropriately. And what you could do now is go to your first degree connections within LinkedIn. You can set up your actions here to send out your personalized message. So this would be some sort of campaign message or something, or promotional message, maybe directing people to a blog post or some sort of information. And then you're hoping to stimulate them to reply. And you can see how effective your message is, or how well received it is, by measuring the rate of people that are reacting and sending replies to you, and track that all through your tracing spreadsheet here. That was the demo part. It's taken a bit longer than planned. I apologize for that, but 1 or 2 technical issues. If we go back to the slides. So we created our Google Sheet. We built our Zap number 1, the visit data. We built Zap number 2, the sent data. And we built our Zap number 3, the received data, the received message. Put that all into our Google Sheet, and we updated the row against the particular individual that we wanted to. We go further. Forthcoming webinars. As I mentioned just now, next week we have some information around DuckSoup version 7.3.1, which hopefully will be in the Chrome store imminently. So it's already available via free range. If you're not familiar with free range, go to our support website and just look in free range there, and you can see how you can access that already. And then the week after, we're looking at how to automate LinkedIn follow-up using DuckSoup Pro. So focusing then for a change a little bit upon our Pro users rather than Turbo users. Today's been focusing very much upon the Turbo functionality and the interaction with Zapier and how to interface into other software applications. Of course, all of our webinars are available as per usual on the normal website. Last week we had a special webinar presented by Jill and Adam from our marketing team covering the new affiliate scheme. So yeah, that's available on there if you'd like to go back and look at that. That's all there for you to look at. Gentle reminder, we still have our booster and technical sessions calls available. Can all be booked via the standard, the normal DuckSoup website. There are plenty of time slots available covering hopefully most of the time zones across the world. So feel free to make use of those if you're needing help with building your Zaps or being able to get to that next level of your integration with whichever software you're using. And hopefully we can support you with those activities as well. As always, our useful links page, our homepage, the webinar page, the easy tutorials which are available on our YouTube channel, the support website, and our Facebook page. I've got there eventually. It's taken a little longer than normal, but Jin, are there any questions you've not been able to handle?
3 questions I would like you to answer. So the first one would be, can you include DuckSoup tags in the spreadsheet so we know what the conversation is about? That's from Bill.
Absolutely. That's a really good question. I'm just going to come out of here a second. So if we look here, if you wanted to capture the tags, if you were tagging people as and when you sent your message, if you were making use of, jump around a little bit here, if you were making use of the tagging profiles when doing the auto visit here, in the payload of the data that you get from the zaps. Let's have a quick look. If we look at the sent message zap here, if we look at the data within here, I think it's this one. Let's have a look. It's not captured there. Where do we capture that? We don't get it in the sent message because that's an action event, but we do capture it in both the visit. So if it's already got a tag on it when you visit the profile, if we look here at this sample data here, you can see here in this data here we have the tags that I have against this profile. So tags are captured in a visit, but I believe they are also captured in a message event. So let's just have a look at that. So when we receive a reply, let's have a look at the catch hook for that one. We look at this one here. Again, you can see here under data tags. So once again, you could map that data into your spreadsheets as one of your fields to map across. You would just need to add a new column in here. So if, for example, let's just do that very quickly. Insert a column to the left. We'll put in here tags. If we go down here and we say, actually, we're done editing here, and we're going to update a spreadsheet here, and we want to customize things, what we can do now is if I refresh these fields, it should automatically identify that I've put tags in here. And I'm going to do, from my catch hook, populate that with my tags. So we're now going to do the update. We'll continue. And that's just sent. I probably won't have done it because it's already sent the update, but that's how you can do it. And then you would then have the tags also then appear here as well. Because Zapier can update dynamically from your spreadsheet, you can add columns in and then make sure that that gets added as and when you get the data through. You only capture tags during a visit event and during a message event, just to remind you there. So if we go back to our connect information here, so it's through a visit event and the message event. We don't capture tags here in the action event there. Okay.
How does this work when there are lots of messages with the given connection? And will the message, the newest message will be added, or can we get all the messages in one spreadsheet?
Yeah, this is where you would probably then want to be, yeah, there's different ways of doing this. And maybe what you would want to do there is, rather than having a lookup against the profile ID, you would then have a new row per message, because otherwise you would end up with perhaps lots of additional columns for messages here, because when you update a row, then the update information would overwrite the data that's already in the cell. Yeah, you'd have to think about how that would work, and whether you would then have multiple rows per message, or whether you would then want to expand horizontally for multiple replies. If there's data contained within this column, then populate the next column, for example. I mean, you can merge some of this data as well. So you could put the sent message and the timestamp within one cell, and then you could just then have multiple columns and with various conditions built within your Zap to look for the next empty column or the next empty cell to populate with any subsequent messages, I think would be the way to go there.
Does it work the same way with Sales Navigator?
Say that again, please, Jin. Sorry.
Sorry. Does it work the same way with Sales Navigator?
Yes. So because Sales Navigator has a separate mailbox, that's one of the reasons we have the little bit of song and dance with working the message bridge, because the message bridge checks your standard mailbox, it checks your Sales Navigator mailbox, and then it checks for new connections. So messages coming in from Sales Navigator would be checked for as well. So if the conversation was within Sales Navigator, it would be captured in exactly the same way through the message bridge, and then populated hopefully in exactly the same way within your spreadsheet. It would be seamless, and you'd be able to then sort of bring all the information from both mailboxes into the one location and be able to track. I think it's very interesting. You can see it's a nice feature to be able to then look to see the time between your sent item, and then the reply, being able to track that. And yeah, with the way that it works and checks both mailboxes, you just need to be aware that when you've got the message bridge on, some people find it a little bit disconcerting when it first happens, when periodically when you have the message bridge on, you'll suddenly see a new tab open, and you'll see automatic actions occurring. When you first do that, it's a little bit unnerving because it's DuckSoup acting on your behalf and it's looking for new messages, but that's how the message bridge works, and it has to do that to be able to pick up that information. So yeah, the reason it checks the 3 different places is because it's looking for new connections, replies in both standard and Sales Navigator mailboxes. Okay.
The last question.
Awesome. Thank you very much indeed. Apologies that it's taken a little longer than usual. Hopefully you were all able to see my screen. We'll do a bit of testing before next week to make sure that it's all nice and clear for next week when we talk about the new features and the slightly new ways of working in 7.3. I'll have a bit of a play around and make sure that the screen is nice and clear for everybody. Hopefully everything has been clear today. So there's a blog post associated with this webinar, and I'd just like to say also thank you to everyone for joining us at this time. It's it's a slightly unsettling time for everybody, but also a special thanks to Jin for her help today. Thank you everybody, and speak next week.